Hello, I'm Steve Topple, I'm here for the Canary, and we are filming today the Unite for Europe march. These guys are calling for more control over the Brexit negotiations, and let's be honest, Theresa May is making a bit of a shambles of it at the minute. They want to discuss things like the human rights aspect, immigration, the single market, but do they really want to stop Brexit altogether? And if there's any people from UKIP here, what are they going to say about that? We're going to film some people, interview some key players and find out what the score is. So, let's go.
Because I still believe that the power of the people can make a difference. I'm here because I believe that Europe is our best option. I don't want anything to happen to us where we're living in a future of uncertainty, any more uncertain than we already have. I really want us to be able to protect our rights, our workers' rights, our women's rights, and the rights of our children. I'm really also very worried about the kind of diversity that it's created in our country. It's very scary, and I, for one, don't believe that that's the values of this country. So I need to stand up and say, no, not my Britain.
Yeah. And as an ordinary person, going about your daily business, what message do you have for Theresa May about her current Brexit shambles, if you like?
Just to see what's going on, to listen, and just to consider all the possibilities and not the ones that she seems so intent on just pushing through.
Okay, so I'm here with Mike from Scientists for the EU. Mike, tell me, how important is the EU for scientific research in this country, research and development?
Oh, it's absolutely vital because science is now an international endeavour. It works about collaborations so that we can share across borders data, patient data, infrastructure, same policy, so we can work together. So if you rupture that, then you take away a lot of capacity from British science.
And if you had a message for Theresa May, what would it be?
I think the message would be, I think you're going down the wrong path here and you need to listen to people from all sectors of UK society. So it's not just about the politicians and the tabloid press. What about the scientists, the IT people, the farmers, the fishers? You know, every sector of this country, including health is a very important one, has structures interwoven with our neighbouring countries. And so hard Brexit just damages a hell of a lot more than most people realise.
Mike, you can get back to your block now. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers.
Why are you here today? What is so important about the European Union for you, apart from Eurovision?
Basically, this has forced, for me, and I think for an awful lot of people, a kind of a crisis of a sense of identity. You know, who do we identify as? Who do we feel we are? And I have always identified far more as European than I have as British, and as Scottish is more than I have English. And so to suddenly have this big sense of who I am kind of ripped away from me, it feels abominable.
Can I just ask you as well then, if you have Scottish heritage, how do you feel about IndieRef then?
Well, I think basically I'm quite pro-Scottish independence, not least because I feel it's a country that very much more reflects the way I feel, my values at the moment. So, you know, Scotland voted overwhelmingly to remain. In general, the Scottish social and kind of domestic policies are far more progressive, far more liberal, far more, you know, compassionate than those that there are in England at the moment. So, yeah, I feel like it's becoming more of a necessity, really.
And Richard, over to you. If you had a message for Theresa May, if you could have an audience with her for 1 minute, what would you say to her about her current Brexit negotiations and the way she's moving Brexit forward, if you like?
Well, I'd certainly say things like, well, Theresa, my wife's French, my daughter was born in Sweden, my wife stayed at home, we weren't aware of the CSI insurance requirements, so now my wife's faced with the situation where she doesn't qualify for permanent residency, even though she's amassed nearly 10 years of national insurance contributions. We went abroad to Sweden for my work as part of the European Union. I came back, I expected the UK to support me. I feel now that the UK has let me down because I can't even get residency for my French wife.
And this is the point about the EU referendum. We started off on a very fun, jovial note and ended on a really serious point actually, which is affecting millions of people in this country. Guys, thank you very much for your time, much appreciated.
I stand here with you all for a minute's silence as a priest alongside any imam, rabbi, granthi, Pujari or other spiritual or humanitarian leader that would stand with us. On this Westminster Bridge and in this square a few days ago, there was a terrorist attack. Let us join together to hold a minute's silence to remember the dead, their families, and the terrible events of that day. A minute's silence. Thank you, and may God bless us all. Amen.
I think it's an important point that needs to be made as we're standing here next to the memorial for the 4 people that died in the Westminster attack. While people like Daesh do seek to divide us, they seek to divide Muslims, they seek to divide the West, we need to remember there are others that divide us in the society as well. The far right, through their hate of immigrants, through their racial intolerance, but also we need to remember the Conservative government are also dividing us. They're pitting disabled people against the rest, the poorest against the rest, immigrant communities against everyone else. So division is not the answer, and as I say, it's not just Daesh who do it. I'm very pleased to be joined by Jonathan Bartley, co-leader of the Green Party here at the Unite for Europe March. Jonathan, what is the main priority for the Green Party to achieve from Brexit? What is the main thing you're looking for Theresa May to get, if you like?
Well, she has no mandate to do this. She only got the job because everyone else ran away. For a start, the Tory party were elected 24% of those eligible to vote. That's not a mandate. And then in terms of what she's doing, no one voted for this. No one voted for that Hobson's choice between an extreme Brexit and no deal at all. Being turned into a tax haven off the shore of continental Europe, is that what we wanted? Is that what we voted? Is that desirable? And she's gone cap in hand now to Donald Trump, and she's desperate for a trade deal. And we know what Trump's going to offer. He's putting America first. He's going to offer us something like TTIP on steroids, which is going to open up the NHS to privatisation, our public services to privatisation. I don't think the penny's dropped for many people how bad this is, and this is the biggest decision that we're going to make, for a generation. It's going to affect yours and my children and their children. These are huge decisions that are being made, and they're being made behind closed doors. We aren't being involved in the process, and we want people to be involved in that process. We want people to have a vote on the final deal. We want people to have a say, and they deserve to be involved in the process right the way through.
Okay, so if you had a message for people who voted Leave and who do want a hard Brexit, if you were trying to convince them to take your stance, if you like, what would it be, to sum it up simply for me?
Okay, so you're driving down the road, there are 5 people in the car, 3 of them vote to take a left turn, and you go down that and suddenly you see potentially a cliff edge ahead of you. No one would go down that road without knowing that they could apply the brakes, but this is exactly what this government has done. It's gone down that road with saying once we trigger Article 50, once we pull the trigger, there's no stopping it. That is just not common sense. It's reckless. It's playing with everyone's lives. It's playing with everyone here's lives and everyone in the country's lives, and we can be so much better than this.
Jonathan, I know you're a great campaigner. I see you out all the time, so thank you very much for your time. Good luck with your speech.
Cheers.
Okay, I'm here at the Unite for Europe March with the legendary campaigner Peter Tatchell. Peter, thank you for joining us. We were on a panel debate together the other night. We were talking about activism and campaigning, and are marches like this going to be enough to get a change of course on Brexit, do you think? What more do we need to be doing?
Democracy is about more than just voting. It's a constant process of holding our rulers to account. There has been a vote, a referendum, on whether we should leave the European Union, and a narrow majority voted yes. But that's not the end of it, because that was a vote for the principle of leaving, not a vote about the terms and conditions. And I think that even many Brexiteers will be alarmed at the likely terms and conditions. Britain is going to pay a very heavy price. And I think that's why we need a second referendum to ensure that everyone, including those who wanted to leave, can have their say again on the precise terms and conditions.
Okay. One concern for me with regards to Brexit, and I think it's a lot of people's concerns as well, is the human rights aspect. I mean, we've already seen, especially with the likes of disabled people, we've seen the UN report saying that the Conservative government grave and systematic violations of disabled people's human rights. How bad do you think it's going to get if we do Brexit with regards to human rights in this country?
Well, of course, quite a few of the human rights we have are thanks to either the European Union or the European Convention on Human Rights. So any pulling out of Europe could put those rights and freedoms in jeopardy. And we know that the Conservative government has talked about not only leaving the EU, but possibly also leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. And that would be a huge setback for the citizens of this country who have benefited hugely from being part of Europe.
Okay, and one final question. What would you say to people who voted to leave and who still want a hard Brexit? What would you say to try and persuade them to come around to your way of thinking, if you like, with this, to have a second thought on Brexiting?
I'd say to the Brexiteers, just pause and remember all the good, positive things that being a member of the European Union has brought to this country. It's thanks to the EU that we have clean beaches. We are no longer swimming in sewage like we used to in the bad old days. It's thanks to Europe that employees have greater rights in the workplace, better conditions, better health and safety and other conditions. So that's a huge benefit for working people in this country. And then thirdly, a simple thing, no more roaming charges when we use our mobile phones, when we're visiting other European Union countries. It's thanks to Europe that financial penalty was removed. So Europe has brought us lots of really positive things, and I think it would be very, very, very mistaken to cut that link, because there are so many issues that we face together with other Europeans that are best resolved in common, like dealing with climate destruction, corporate tax avoidance, and many, many other social justice issues.
Peter, thank you for your time as always. Okay, I'm here at the Unite for Europe March with Richard Corbett, MEP. Richard, how are things in European Parliament at the moment? What's happening with regards to how the Europeans are viewing us concerning Brexit? What's the feeling like, if you like?
Our fellow Europeans are predominantly very sad and somewhat mystified that we have apparently chosen this course of action. Many of them, like many people here, are hoping that Britain might change its mind. After all, a democracy that cannot change its mind is not a democracy.
No, that's very true. And how are you finding UKIP? How are they reacting in the European Parliament? What's their attitude been like since the EU referendum vote?
They've spent most of their time infighting since then, frankly, so we don't hear much from them in the rest of the Parliament. They're too busy fighting each other.
And if you had one thing you could say to Theresa May regarding Brexit, what would it be?
We cannot afford a costly, damaging Brexit, which is what she's taken us towards. Many people who voted leave, very few of them voted leave at any cost. Most of them voted for leave at no cost, because they were told it won't cost anything, it'll bring in money, it can all go to the NHS. That's clearly not true, and we need to be able to stop a hard, damaging Brexit.
Richard, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with your speech.
Thank you.
Right, I'm very excited and pleased to be joined by Tim Farron, leader of the Liberal Democrats here at the Unite for Europe March. Tim, thank you for joining us. There are many people on the left and possibly in the centre as well who wanted a Lexit, that is a left-wing exit from Europe. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. What message would you have to those on the left who are anti-globalisation, anti-capitalism, anti the undemocratic nature of the EU? How would you persuade them to now agree we need to maybe renege on Brexit altogether?
Okay, I mean, good point. And two things I'd say. First of all, I'm not somebody who thinks everything the Commission does is right, but do I think that a Europe that has healed the wounds of 2 world wars and brought together those who were antagonists in the Cold War, do I think that's a good thing? Too right is a good thing, and we should fight to change it from within. The second thing is, with all respect to those who support Lexit, what the government has done is brought in a whole world view with Brexit. To them, Brexit is part of a world view, which is a shrunken state. It means a smaller public services. It means getting rid of the green crap, as they call it, not believing climate change is real. It means being opposed to international nationalism of all kinds, and that is not something that people on the centre and left would buy into. So whatever you think of the European Union, what we're seeing now is the government deciding to interpret the referendum and assume it meant something much more extreme than it did, not just on Brexit itself, but on the whole bigger range of things that affect all of us.
Okay, and with regards to the Labour Party, obviously the biggest party in opposition at the moment, what more can they be doing regarding the Brexit negotiations, and how do you view their Brexit stance?
I think, first of all, they found themselves to be neither fish nor fowl on the biggest issue of this generation, and it's hard to know how they get out of that. And it's the blame of Jeremy Corbyn is partially unfair. I mean, the majority of those people who voted in the lobbies with the government to trigger Article 50 despite no concessions were people that Jeremy Corbyn would probably call Blairite. So the reality is that we, as a country, are going to a harder Brexit stance because of a weak and ineffective opposition. And I can't predict what's going to happen next, but I am determined that we are not just going to take advantage of the opportunity, but step up and take the duty that there needs to be upon the Liberal Democrats to be that real opposition. And people will observe that it's only a little over 100 years that Keir Hardie led a parliamentary party smaller than what I lead now. The tectonic plates have changed in British politics before. Why shouldn't they change again?
Tim, thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy.
Thank you. Take care. Cheers. Thank you.
Look, how do we move forward from this? I don't know. The country is still so divided, opinions are polarised, and as we've seen from the march today, people are deeply opposed to Brexit. But you still have a large portion of society which agrees with it. There's one thing I do know, however, and that we have a common enemy. It is a Conservative government, whether you agree with Brexit or whether you disagree with Brexit. What the Tories are doing to this country is absolutely outrageous. And if we could just unite against the Conservatives and look to bring this government down, maybe we can start resolving all these problems, including the EU referendum.
Look Farron in the eye.